All right, I'll stop recording. Well,
So,
okay.
welcome everybody to the Moving Forward with the Target Zero Commission webinar today. I'm Debra Kagan. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, and this is part of our Safe Network webinar series. Since the Target Zero Commission bill became law in January, there's been a great deal of interest and questions and excitement about this bill. So we thought it was important to share how this law came about, what are the goals and tasks set out for the commission, and to begin a dialogue with advocates who are really excited to participate in moving this commission forward to achieve our common goal of zero fatalities and serious injuries by 2040. So today we have a lot of registered guests, and we want to welcome also, hopefully, the Strategic Highway Safety Plan Strategy Workshop Group that is going to be live streaming this as well. So I'm sure, you know, we all have a lot of questions, and I just want to set the expectations for today for those questions, since there's so many of us on this webinar. This is the very beginning of the process, and the commission hasn't actually met yet. So our speakers may not have answers to many of the questions yet, but it is still important to hear your questions and comments. So we have so many participants today. We have your mics turned off, so please put your questions and comments in the Q&A tab. Since we won't get to all of your questions today, I've spoken with the speakers, and the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition will take the questions, consolidate them, and we're going to share them with the speakers, so who will be able to write up some responses. And then we're going to post those responses on our website along with a video of the webinar. So we are honored today to have this esteemed panel of speakers. We have NJDOT Commissioner Fran O'Connor, Senate Transportation Committee Chair Senator Patrick Diegnan, Division of Highway Traffic Safety Director Mike Rizol, and we're having a couple technical difficulties, so we'll just make sure we can get to them in a minute. Essex County Commissioner Brendan Gill, and Safe Streets co-founder and the Vision Zero New Jersey Alliance spokesperson Sangeeta Badlani. So we appreciate your being here today and your support to start this open dialogue so early in this process around the commission. Commissioner O'Connor will need to leave the webinar early to address the I-80 crisis. So we're going to introduce him first, followed by the other speakers. However, you will have another chance to hear from him, as he is a keynote speaker at the 2025 New Jersey Bike and Walk Summit on March 29th at Princeton University, and registration is open on our website. So now I'd like to introduce Commissioner O'Connor. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you, Deborah, and I appreciate being here. We all know how important, and we have to thank Senator Diegnan for shepherding this legislation through on Target Zero Commission. As you said, we haven't met yet, but we are going to meet, and it will be going out. We'll be posting it. It will be March 6th at 10 a.m. at the New Jersey Transit headquarters, and that'll get out and make sure we have it on everybody's website. It is a public hearing meeting for the public to come. And the reason why I took New Jersey Transit, number one, for the accessibility of people getting there, but also it's big enough to host. You have a 13-member board or commission, as we say. And so it's important that, we get this started. And I can go into because it says, I get this question a lot, what is my vision of this commission? And I have to say, number one, the DOT has a vision of zero for many, many years. But the good thing about this is a statewide commission that involves not only the 13 commission members, but also all stakeholders in that. And I'll go into what my thinking is of how because that's going to be a question of how all stakeholders get involved, especially the advocates, which is so important to this commission's way of thinking. But the good thing is we have so many people around the state, not just only DOT's perspective, but also what is the Department of Health's perspective, the state police perspective, the Department of Community Affairs, the state highway, where we go, myself and Mike work a lot on safety, but now we have all the transportation, the TPAs that are involved with this commission. So we have the experts that brings you a broader range. Where Governor Murphy signing the bill and putting the state of New Jersey behind our vision of zero, right? Because, they say, what is the goal? Well, we all know the goal of the commissioner trying to reach zero by 2040, but as I tell my folks here at the DOT, one fatality is just too many on our roads, on our, whether it involves cars, whether pedestrians or bicyclists. So, we have to get to that. And with my vision here, I know we have, you have two, with the legislation, you have two public meetings, where you have it open and you have to do a plan within the year. I'm going to task the commission to make sure we come up with the plan and submit it to the legislature and the governor in December of this year. And the reason why is, let's face it, if we don't have to submit the plan to February of 2026, some of us might not be here in 2026. So I want to make sure, and anything we do in this commission, because we're sending the foundation, because we just can't stop with the commission this year. I'm trying to build the foundation on everything we do that, what happens next year on implementation, what happens. So we have to continually evolve this commission on, you just don't stop and issue a planning. I want a commission of action. And many of you that have met me, I been on the private side for a long time. I like movement and I like action. Since the day one I got on this, in this chair, safety has been one of my key initiatives in our program. And I don't call it, I even should, you say initiatives or you say it's a campaign. No, in the DOT, we call it a way of life. So that's important for us, and I say that because, when I got on here, they said you can't change the way people think when they drive. And some of you saw the marketing stuff we did on the what if and the respect of trying to get people to start thinking what they do when they get behind the wheel. So, what if a person who's crossing the street or riding the bicycle, they see the last thing they see is you texting. So that's the stuff, especially, at the commissioner, because at the commission we will be following, and a shift of thinking in a sense of the safe system approach and saying, okay, we know people are going to make mistakes, right? So we have to shift this thinking. How do we now build our roadways, teach our and again, an education is such a big portion of this, commission, because the one thing that I think we have to make sure the Department of Education is involved. We do a lot of education ourselves with the advocates and the DOT. We go to schools, but then we're out of there. So how do we, number one, get the education in our schools, and Georgia does a lot of that. They go from their K to their 12, number one, safely walking, safely bicycling, and then gradually moving up to driving. So that's going to be another key part. And then, you say, how do we reach? Now, we'll have these public meetings, and the first public meeting or the public hearing where folks, the advocates will be allowed to speak, and I'm saying you never can solve problems in a commission meeting of 2 hours, right? The work's going to happen after we have our public session and we start our, groups or committee to say, the advocates, let's come in, because we need a whole broad conversation. It's just not the 13 people up there that are talking. on stuff and saying, okay, no. So I see a lot of virtual, a lot of in-person meetings after the public meeting to get our plan going and get and they say, what are your goals of the commission? I said, well, no, we know number one goal is trying to reduce fatalities by 2040, but we're going to have other goals. And those goals are going to be developed as we're working with our groups. And it could be one group, it could be two groups, depending on, what we have to, how many people, you're trying to manage it. But again, those groups include everybody, all stakeholders. That includes the commission members, that includes all the advocates, that includes even you get into folks, the advocates like AAA who are doing their safety campaign. Another part of another member of the commission is the MVC, because it's important also to say, okay, what do we have to do, or what are we thinking? I had a very wise Secretary of Transportation from West Virginia, and he said, I took a test when I was 16 years old to drive my car. And he goes, I'm 62 and I haven't taken a test since then, or I haven't looked at, so where does the education come in when you have, say, you can't pass on the right side, whether it's a shoulder or on a shoulder, you can't pass on a one-lane road. A lot of people don't do that, especially if your roads in central Jersey and South Jersey, you don't only have one lane, somebody's making a left, oh, let me go into this. Or even the move over laws that we have. How many people or kids or who are driving know that you have to move over for an emergency vehicle, or, people working on the side of the road. So that's the stuff we have to think about education-wise when we get into it. So we have a lot of, I'm excited if people say, and I told people this, I said, this is one of the commissions or boards that I want to chair. This is something that I have a passion about. And I do serve as chair of many boards, but being part of this, because again, and I have talked to many of you, it is so, the good thing is we're all committed to the same thing. So we're not going in saying, I want this, we all know what we want. We want reduced fatalities. We want reduced crashes. Okay. And that's for all people, right? That's just not for our cars. That's for our person, we could talk about the trailways we build or help build, but we have to make sure our bicyclists get to those trailways, or we're getting where they're going safely. So our roads have to be, and we could talk about our road diets of how we reduce, and we're working along with Senator Diegnan on some of his areas on how we can reduce it and slow traffic down and keep the pedestrians and bicyclists safe in that area. So I don't want to dominate the time. I do appreciate, I think I handle, some of the things when we say, what the vision, we know what the vision is, we know we have to incorporate everybody. It's just not a DOT vision. I might share it. I might use my resources to help, but this is a vision, a statewide vision of all stakeholders on how we get in it. And I said this from my day one when I talked at the transaction. I can't do it alone. And I said that from day one. DOT can't do it alone. We do try that where we look at things, have how we design roadways. We try to do it goes through a safety review and say, okay, what can we do to make our design and our roadways better? And our existing roads, we try to do, where we have a push on putting our technology on the our traffic lights to give more time for people crossing, to give more time where if they, know this car is not going to stop at this red light, to keep that light yellow, to keep people, and we have implemented that, successfully, especially in Trenton, and we just did in Elizabeth. But then again, I might have reduced 8 fatalities in Trenton on those areas to 1. I tell my folks 1 is still too many on that. So, so we know what the vision is. all us, right, we're all part of this. And, you know, as we develop the rules, and because we have to write rules and regulations, well, we may write it, but I'm on the thinking that we do have to write rules and regulations. So this commission stays on, that after, when I'm gone, that next year, you know, in 2026, the implementation plan, and hopefully I'll still be active, but, you know, we need this to keep going. And that's what my vision is, that this commission is just, you know, a lot of commissions are established and you just submit a plan and that's our plan and we go away. That's not this one, you know, and we will come up with goals of short-term solutions too. We might say, you know, and I have short-term solution for the most deadliest intersections in the state of New Jersey that we're working on now, because we can't wait, you know, I can't wait, but, you know, how do we make our roads safer, not only this year, but how years to come? Did I hear anything, Deborah? Am I okay?
You covered a lot of it. I was going to ask you questions that.
I know. I see. I apologize. I like to jump.
No, you don't have to apologize.
That's the Irish in me. I just, you know.
No, people do want to hear from you. There's
Mhm.
tremendous interest in this, and there's tremendous desire to work with the commission.
Mhm.
I think if you could just maybe elaborate a little bit more on the since we are the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, so a lot of our focus is on vulnerable road users, right?
Right.
And laws protecting vulnerable road users and the development of infrastructure, right, on our roadways that in particular give safe space for biking and walking.
Right.
So maybe you could just talk a little briefly about how you see sort of the vision, both in the development of the action plan and afterwards. And I really appreciate your vision for not just getting the plan, but a plan that's actionable going forward. Maybe just talk a little bit about how you do that working for biking and vulnerable road users.
And you know, where I say, you know, where and vulnerable, and I say that all the time, and in every talk I give, and I talk about safety, you know, that roadway we develop, and we'll talk about now what we look at, and I told my folks, okay, you're doing a project and you have 1,000 feet of sidewalk you're putting in. I want you to look down, and if we have to go another 1,000 feet more to make sure, number one, we have sidewalks, and I use it as saying, it breaks my heart where I went to the Burlington City Board of Education and a route along our 130, and I'm actually walking with them next week with the students. They don't have sidewalks to walk on, okay? They have no sidewalks, and they're walking on grass, and they're walking on right away. And I'm saying to myself, we do a lot to protect our children while they're in school. How do we protect them to get to school? So that's one area, you know, extending sidewalks, and you talk about the bicyclists, right? There are ways that we can look at, and everybody's involved. When I say, you know, in this commission with the stakeholders, it's the stakeholders. It's you, you know, it's Sangeeta, it's all the folks that, you know, are looking at for our pedestrians. The safety I talked about with our traffic lights, right? That is mostly for pedestrians in Elizabeth, walking across those unsafe roads and walking across people who who need to walk, you know, to their job or to the grocery store. So, you know, that's what we have to look at. And I have my folks saying, okay, and I don't care if you need another 500 feet or 1,000 feet of sidewalk. So the person could continue. And I remember my first day first week on the job, I'm coming down to the DOT and I'm watching a father, these are the local roads, walking his daughter, and he walked on this little bit of road. And then he had to cross the street to get to the sidewalk across the street. And then he had to go a little bit, then he had to come back. And this is a two-way road, you know? So there has to be ways. And I think the thing, I've been all over this state, meeting with the local mayors, the local legislators on, especially on fatalities of people walking. You know, you have a hotel on one side and you have a restaurant across the street, and the light is a mile down the road. Well, what are people going to do? They're not going to walk a mile down the road. So we look at, okay, can we do mid-cross walks, you know, there where that person, you know, safely get across. You know, some roads we have to put up fencing just for protection of the people not trying to get across, because, you know, especially on our major roads that we use. So we're looking at everything on it. And again, I'm not, you know, I need help, right? You know, people, we have on this webinar, we have a lot of smart people, right? And we have a lot of smart people involved with you who say, hey, did you think about this? Or did you think about, that's what, you know, I think that's what the Vision Zero is. You know, it's just not me saying, you know, okay, put concrete out there and we'll do that, you know, no. So, and when I talked about the road diet, that is, you know, narrowing a road, making room for a pedestrian and a bicycle that they go through on some of our areas that, you know, we're trying that on, you know, and you know, Vision Zero works. You know, you look at Hoboken, you look at some, you know, other countries, right? It works. So we have to figure out, and granted, you know, you can't do you know, when I was talking about a road diet in one area of the state, they said, oh, we're doing a lot of development here. Let's be careful of congestion, right? And that's what you deal with. You're trying to say, okay, what's the safety? And, you know, some towns don't want a road diet. So we have to balance that, but always err on say, okay, how do we, number one, move our folks? Because especially when you get in the urban areas, you get the people who, you know, when you go into your suburban areas with people who are bicycling. How many times, if I'm in Freehold, I see people using the regular, you know, because they don't have an area to go to. That's why we are trying to figure out, you know, on the trailways, you know, the Johnson trolley, you know, I'm a big supporter of that on it, you know, and I say, if we could build bridges elsewhere, why can't we not build a bridge that helps 8 towns to get folks to connect trailways there? So that's my, you know, thinking of it.
Great.
You know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and the complication of doing the shift for making safety the priority in our projects is going to take a cultural shift as we go through this. Lots of people on this webinar are advocates, and you mentioned having advocates participate in the development of the action plan, not just coming to the public meetings, which I'm really excited to hear that. Can you talk just a little bit about your vision, what that might look like? How is that going to happen?
And that's what I think. So we'll have our public meeting, and what I vision, and again, we're going to have to limit talk time because, you know, you have a lot of people that want to talk, but that's not to limit ideas. That's just to give a, you know, an overview of what, you know, whether you represent an organization, you know, and I think we get one representative from each organization to talk and say, this is what we're thinking. But after that, you know, number one, we will have sign-in sheets, you know, we'll have sign-in sheets for speakers and sign-in sheet people who come. And when I think of committees, I mean, we have a lot of committees, you know, and I'll use New Jersey Transit. Every board has a committee that does, you know, and I hate to say this, but does the work, right? That get out there and grind. So these committees, you know, and again, well, you know, it's whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, it's a statewide, right? So you can have many ideas come in. So, you know, where we say, okay, we're going to put this committee together, and, you know, and as I say, each board member has to have a representative on that committee too, because it doesn't make sense just the advocates working, and it's, you know, that's almost as worse as just the board members working, you know, in a shell. So we say, okay, we all get together, and this is where it's, Debra, where it's going to be meetings. They're going to be meetings on saying, similar to, you know, you've been involved with our plan, you know, that we've all been involved with, the folks that have just joined us, that you're in it from, the advocates are in it from the start to say, okay, how do I participate? There's no door that's gonna be shut on anything. This is not, me. It's like, okay, let's look at it. And I'm hoping, maybe I'm a dreamer, but the one thing I do well is organize. So I look forward to saying, and I see meetings. Now you have to realize we have to have a report, and I say December. So number one, we will have another public meeting in October timeframe, to get a draft of the report. So that gives us 6 months, right? If you want to think. Now you have to realize a lot of board members are calling me crazy because, as you know, right now is budget. It's going to be the budget's hearings coming up. But I said, well, just assign one of your SMEs to that, what we have to do. Because I don't want to stop the process. So I'm thinking that the first meeting of these committees, and again, I say committees, it could be one committee, it might be 2 committees, depending on the amount. And I'm open to that, in a sense to say, okay, we need, ultimately everybody has to come together. So that's why I think the involvement in the committee structure, because like I said, going to a public meeting and talking for 3 minutes and then going away doesn't mean anything. And we have to start the process right away. Right after that meeting in March, we have to start these, and I call them virtual meetings. Sometimes you have them in person, sometimes you have virtual meetings. Let's get the ball rolling on what we have to do. Naturally, we have to have structure in there, right? Because if you go to a meeting with no structure, you could have, so we have to work that on. So I will look, toward the advocates to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, to get everybody together. So you're making sure on board. And the good thing when you see the advocates, you see a lot of people that work across different, groups. And we see them, right? And we know them. So that's what we have to do. But we have to make sure there's a representative from each member of the commission. So we have a unified plan. So people might think, oh, you're crazy, you're going to have, but no, it works. It does work. And if you look at New Jersey Transit, they have a customer service committee, group that gets together, and we hear them and we look at it. So, but here is now we're creating a plan. So we all have to be involved with it.
We appreciate that and appreciate your coming on this webinar today. I know you have to address the I-80 crisis and you're going to have to leave us, but really appreciate this. And I'm just going to reiterate for anyone who came on late, we are going to take questions in the Q&A. Please put your questions in. The commissioner's office has agreed to respond to some of these in written form. We're going to share questions with you all because we're not going to get to all of them today. And you may not know the answers to a lot of them yet, right?
Right.
So
Right.
we're going to post those questions.
And I look forward to being in March, and I'm sure everybody will have questions there.
Yep.
So
this is your entry into that.
Yes.
And we're really excited to have you for the summit.
And I appreciate, and I apologize, but I really do have to, I have a group of about 10 mayors waiting to talk to me on what we have to do next up there. So I apologize.
No, not at all. We really appreciate you being here today and look forward to working with you.
Absolutely.
On this.
Absolutely. And the good thing I have to say, Debra knows my number. She'll track me down on everything. And then you could always get the senator. He has my home number, so.
That he has not shared with me yet. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so
really
much. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Sangeeta Badlani. Sangeeta is the spokesperson for the New Jersey Vision Zero Alliance, the Safe Streets, Families for Safe Streets co-founder, and the Nikhil Badlani Foundation. And she's going to talk a little bit about how we sort of put together the idea for this bill and some of the background and unpack some of the points that are in the bill. So welcome, Sangeeta.
Thank you, Deb. And it was really nice to hear from Commissioner O'Connor. you know, we still have a lot of answers, but I think we're headed in the right direction. So that's great. I want to thank all the other panelists and everyone joining us today as we discuss the next steps in making Target Zero a reality. First and foremost, I want to thank Senator Diegnan and Assemblyman Karabanchek for championing this bill and Governor Murphy for signing this into law. So thank you. And all the families for sharing their heartbreaking stories and the advocates for their relentless advocacy. So my advocacy began not out of choice, but out of necessity. Because in June 2011, my family's life changed forever. My 11-year-old son, Nikhil, was killed by a reckless and distracted driver. One moment, Nikhil was a bright, passionate boy with dreams ahead of him. The next, he was gone. He wasn't sick. There was no warning. Just the devastating reality that someone else's negligence on the road stole his future. During my research, I found no real resource for families like mine and no clear roadmap for change. Only grief, frustration, and the belief that traffic deaths are inevitable. I knew that if nothing changed, more families would suffer a similar loss. Determined to create change, we founded the Nikhil Badlani Foundation. Through the foundation, we advocate for safer streets, driver education, and stronger policies pushing for accountability and systemic change. In 2014, New York City adopted Vision Zero, driven by Families for Safe Streets in New York City. I joined them at many events and saw firsthand the power of survivors and families turning pain into action. It became clear that there is strength in numbers, so that the real change happens when we all unite. And the idea to expand the movement in New Jersey took shape. Next slide, please. In 2017, we established the Families for Safe Streets New Jersey chapter with Tri-State Transportation Campaign as our strategic partner. We advocate for physical and cultural changes on our roads and provide support to others. Around the same time, Vision Zero was gaining momentum in New Jersey, with cities like Jersey City and Hoboken taking action. And we saw the results, and we're seeing them now. Hoboken has had 0 traffic deaths on local roads for the last 8 years. And about 50% of fatal crashes occur on state-controlled roadways. So we knew that real change had to come from the state level. We couldn't reach 0 traffic deaths without a statewide commitment. Next slide, please. In 2020, we formed alliances with other safety organizations to create the Vision Zero New Jersey Alliance. Next slide, please. Our mission is to support and advocate for the development and implementation of Vision Zero policies and actions in order to eliminate traffic fatalities and improve mobility in New Jersey. That year, at the World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims, we called on our legislators to adopt the statewide Vision Zero strategy, and Senator Diegnan was with us. In early 2022, we drafted the Target Zero bill, a comprehensive framework to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries in New Jersey. We met with Senator Diegnan and Assemblyman Karabanchek, and in June of 2022, the bill was introduced in the legislature. So, despite challenges, we pushed forward with relentless advocacy in every step of the process, from raising awareness to building legislative momentum. And finally, this year, on January 13th, the Target Zero bill was signed into law by Governor Murphy, setting a national standard for other states. Today, with this law, New Jersey is finally saying enough. No more lives lost on our roadways. No more families broken. 0 is the only acceptable number. So who's on this commission? We have 13 members and Commissioner O'Connor talked about it, across state agencies and MPOs that will coordinate and collaborate to develop an action plan. So all the individuals that you see listed on this, either it'll be them or the ex officio or designee that will be on this commission. And we recognize that traffic deaths are not just a transportation issue, but they're actually a public health, environmental, and equity issue. So achieving zero deaths requires actions across multiple sectors, such as the Department of Community Affairs. They can prioritize zoning and land use policies that promote walkability and bikeability and create safer roads where people can get around without risking their lives. CDC has called traffic deaths and serious injuries a public health crisis, and hospitals and EMS systems deal with the consequences. The Department of Health can improve coordination between the first responders and hospitals to provide the best post-crash care, establish standardized post-crash protocols to assist families in navigating the aftermath of a crash. We all know low-income communities often lack safe sidewalks and bike lanes, exposing residents to both dangerous traffic and air pollution. The Department of Environmental Protection and Environmental Justice Office must address the disparate impacts of traffic violence on vulnerable communities by advocating for safe, multimodal transportation options, traffic calming measures, and reduce vehicle emissions in overburdened areas. Many streets lack curb cuts, audible pedestrian signals, continuous network of sidewalks, and well-maintained crosswalks, making it difficult for seniors and people with disabilities to navigate safely. The Department of Human Services must ensure that accessibility is a priority in all road redesign projects, integrating ADA-compliant infrastructure, safe crossing, and transit access into traffic safety planning. So this Target Zero Commission will break down silos. By fostering collaboration across agencies, the Commission ensures that solutions are comprehensive, coordinated, and effective in eliminating traffic deaths and serious injuries. Next slide, please. So what is the Commission going to do? The Commission will review any relevant existing safety plans by its members, identify ways to advance Target Zero strategies, and develop a comprehensive, coordinated, data-driven action plan to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries by 2040. Not reduce, but eliminate fatalities. It will meet with key stakeholders, advocates, and experts for input. They will encourage active transportation and mass transit as safe and viable forms of transportation for people of all ages and abilities. They will focus on inclusion and equity for all road users and create a publicly accessible data website that includes traffic crash data and a high injury network of roadways in the state. And most importantly, they will report annually to the governor and the legislature on the findings and activities of the Commission, including the number of traffic fatalities and serious injuries, and the review of the implementation of the action plan prior to the World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims in November. So this law, it's a paradigm shift in how we approach traffic safety. And I cannot wait for the Commission to begin its work. With the right commitment and collaboration, we have an opportunity to create lasting change and save lives. So I am really looking forward for the Commission to kick off its work. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you very much for sharing your personal story and for all of your advocacy work to get this bill passed. Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome Senator Diegnan, the chair of the Transportation Committee, and a great advocate for safety. He's been a sponsor and a dedicated champion of this bill over a long period of time. So thank you so much for joining us, Senator Diegnan. Floor is yours.
Thanks, Deborah. I say this every time that we get together, but Sangeeta, if it was not for you, this would not be happening. It appears as though my video has gone out, though. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I'm
We
sorry,
need
I
Greg
don't know.
there.
Probably good for anybody that's what. Let me just try again.
Now you're back.
I've been accused of a lot of things in my life, but techie is not one of them. Brendan, you know that's true. But again, you know, I say this every time we get together. Sangeeta, the courage that you exhibit every day to deal with the tragedy that you have been forced to deal with for your life and make this a cause to save the lives of others is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. And this legislation simply would not have happened without your advocacy, period. So none of us can in any way, shape, or form, I hate to use the word take credit, but be responsible for this legislation except for you. And God bless you. God bless you. And God bless you for your focus, and you're a model for others to follow. I don't want to repeat everything that the commissioner talked about, and Sangeeta, you talked about, but simply stated, even though we're a very small state, we're a very diverse state. Sussex County is totally different than Cape May County. Cape May County is totally different than Middlesex County, than Essex County. Pick your specific county. So the most important part of this commission is that it will be able to listen, and that's what it has to do. I mean, the modifications that have been made in Hoboken are great for Hoboken, but that would not necessarily work in Sussex County. You know, do we have to, in rural areas, make it the law that you cannot waive sidewalks when you do a development? I can tell you, I walk in the afternoon, and sometimes I take my daughter's dog with me. The area that I live in has no sidewalks, and you're walking along the street and somebody flies past you at 40 miles an hour. You know, if the dog pulled me out into the street or whatever, it's education is an essential part of it, because I think people have to be made aware how dangerous of what they're doing. But anyone that believes they have all the answers simply is wrong. We have to look at each individual circumstance. You know, maybe the dedication of the roadways. Maybe we have to make them 10 feet wider when we dedicate them, so that we can have dedicated bike lanes or what. Maybe we should change. I talked to the commissioner about this one. Maybe we should change the color of crosswalks. Rather than being white and everybody drive past them without even noticing, maybe we should make them red or green or what. I'm just throwing out ideas. But that is what this commission will do. And that's why it's so important. And I don't know how many people are on the call, but the most important thing is to involve as many people as possible to come up with solutions, or at least suggestions. Because Sangeeta said our goal is to not reduce deaths, but eliminate deaths. And it is absolutely an attainable goal, but we have to focus on it. So, you know, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be part of this solution. And I know I speak for the commissioner, I speak for the governor, I'm sure I speak for every member of the legislature. Just let us know what we need further to make this happen. And again, God bless you for all you do.
Thank you very much, Senator, for being here. And I also know that there's some other legislative initiatives that you are looking into to get testing and driver's ed out there as well. Do you want to just let people know a little bit?
My granddaughter just turned 16, and she got her permit, and it's frightening. I mean, she was telling me the other day, she and her mom were driving somewhere and somebody was on their bumper the whole way. Because again, her being a first-time driver, she's actually following the speed limit, which of course is unheard of. She actually was stopping at stop signs, which of course is unheard of. She actually didn't speed up to go through red lights. I mean, it's just crazy. We all know what's going on. The aggressive driving is bizarre, and it's really frightening. It's absolutely frightening. As a grandparent, as I know her mom and dad, it's frightening. And we have to make this, and I think so much of it is education, just to brainstorm for a minute. So many of the new cars are so efficient and quiet that many times you don't know you're going 40 miles an hour. That's why these signs that they have that tell you the speed limit that you're going, I find they really work. I know we have them in my hometown of South Plainfield near all the school districts, and you actually see cars slow down when they see that you're going 40 miles an hour and they don't even realize it. Maybe that's one of the suggestions. And what the commissioner talked about, we definitely need, especially in our urban areas, we need more crosswalks. I mean, having a crosswalk a half mile apart, it doesn't work. People cross illegally, so that's just one of the things that we have to do. But again, I don't have the answers. That's what this commission is about, and that's why it's so important to get everybody's input.
Oh, we gratefully appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime.
And we look forward to working with you on other
Oh, please.
legislation, other ideas that
Please.
start to come out of this commission. I know and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I know there are many other ideas that have been floating, including things like automated camera enforcement, as well as different funding. Of course, we're going to have to be looking at what happens with the new administration in terms of funding, and also education, as you mentioned.
Oh, absolutely.
I know there's also a couple of bills being formed to talk about doing more campaigns around the safe passing law, both to the general public and in schools.
I was recently with some friends, and I asked them a simple question. When you're out walking on the street at night, are you supposed to walk with traffic or against traffic? Nobody knew the answer. I mean, it seems like a simple thing, but that's the kind of education, when you're riding a bike, you're supposed to ride a bike with traffic or against traffic. People don't know the difference. So many kids you see driving against traffic, not really realizing that they're doing it wrong. So, education is an essential part of it.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Senator.
And I always say this to anybody that's on the call, do never feel you're making yourself out to be a pain. I would much rather you call me one too many times than one too few, because the thing that drives me most nuts is when you're out and about and somebody will say, oh, gee, Pat, I just thought you knew about that. Don't ever presume. So, everybody really wants to do the right thing here. We just got to come up with some solutions.
Well, we'll be sure to keep calling you.
Yeah.
Please, seriously.
Absolutely.
Thank you again. And thank you again for sponsoring this bill from everybody. So I want to introduce the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety Director, Mike Rizol, who's joined us today, and will be sitting on the commission as well. So welcome, Mike, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're good.
All right, great. Pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to speak just for a little bit here. Both the senator and the commissioner and Ms. Badlani have done a great job talking about the commission. We're all very much looking forward to seeing where it'll go. Had a meeting with the commissioner this week already and trying to coordinate how it's going to take shape. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the Division of Highway Traffic Safety and what I suspect our role might be. And for those who are not familiar, everyone's heard of it, but a lot of people aren't really familiar with what we do. So I'd like to explain a little bit what we are and what we are not. So the Division of Highway Traffic Safety, we're completely separate from the Department of Transportation. We sit within the Department of Law and Public Safety under the supervision of Attorney General Matthew Platkin. As the state's lead highway traffic safety agency, we promote traffic safety and coordinate traffic safety activities between state and local agencies as part of the statewide traffic safety plan. And this all kind of began, we are the state's highway traffic safety office. Every state has one. The U.S. Highway Safety Act of 1966 created a stream of funding federal funding to the states, and it is our office or our responsibility to manage those funds, procure those funds from the federal government, manage those funds, administer safety programs, as I said, with municipalities, state agencies, and local organizations to bring about traffic safety changes. Last year, we funded 510 grants, 510 separate programs with about $24 million in federal funds. We're responsible for implementing on behalf of the governor, New Jersey's highway safety programs, comprehensive plan to reduce fatalities and injuries. We administer now, starting in 2024, a 3-year plan. And we report back to the federal government at the end of each year as to what we did with the funds, how we used them, how effective they were. The funds come to us in sometimes earmarked for particular tasks such as occupant protection or impaired driving or distracted driving or pedestrian safety and bicycle safety. Our organization also, our division also coordinates the State Drunk Driving Enforcement Fund, Pedestrian Safety Enforcement and Education Fund, Motor Vehicle Snow and Ice Removal Fund. So as the director, appointed as the governor's representative for highway traffic safety back to NHTSA at the federal government. I chair the governor's Highway Traffic Safety Policy Advisory Council, and as everyone has said, I'll now be part of this Target Zero Commission. So our vision, or my vision of how we're going to affect this is, to spread that message of traffic safety through our funded efforts. We focus on a lot of community collaboration to help us learn where and how we can best target our efforts and to learn how our messages are received. Although we were a lot smaller than the Department of Transportation in both size, staffing that is, and budget, traffic safety is a priority to both of us. I've heard a lot of talk about infrastructure related concerns and potential proposals. NJDOT provides those infrastructure solutions to improve traffic safety, while the Division of Highway Traffic Safety promotes primarily those behavioral related changes. I spoke about 2 weeks ago at the Getting to Zero conference about the safe system approach, and I imagine most people on this call are very familiar with the safe system approach. But when you think of the safe system approach, the Division of Highway Traffic Safety focuses primarily on ensuring that we have safer people and safer speeds out there on the road. Two things that I think are particularly critical. And the safe system approach kind of places people at the heart of traffic safety, recognizing that everyone, whether you're driving or biking or walking, you have a role to play to ensure safe roadways. Engineers, designers, policymakers, law enforcement all have their role. What we work on ensuring that people adopt behaviors that will protect themselves and protect others. And that really applies to a couple different strategies, one of which is education. And I think that's really the foundation of future change. And I believe this commission can go a long way in promoting new educational opportunities. The senator mentioned something about, I forget whether you said it was your daughter or your niece or whomever it was, a new driver. I'm sitting here today at the State Highway Strategic Plan workshop, and lots of ideas are coming up and lots of conversations are being had. And a lot of those are focused around education. And some of those suggestions certainly should make their way to the commission, and hopefully will make their way to someone that can make a difference. A lot of changes, a lot of ideas that are being thrown around, require, assistance from the legislature. And that's certainly, I think, where the commission's going to be key in building that bridge. Then there's also law enforcement. It's important that law enforcement hold people responsible for their dangerous driving actions like speeding, driving under the influence, texting while driving, and such. Traffic enforcement carried out by police on a day-to-day basis and along with strategic initiatives, high visibility enforcement, deter actions, and reinforce the importance of safety. So actions around those will certainly be critical also. And then community. I think making sure that the community has some buy-in, that they believe in what we're doing, that they know what this commission is, that they understand what's to come out of it, will be certainly key. You know, working together, particularly law enforcement, local governments, community organizations, can create effective solutions. And then obviously there's safer speeds. Speed management is the cornerstone of the safe system approach. And I believe that hopefully some actions will come out of this that will help people embrace safer speeds. Too often, drivers don't drive the appropriate speed, or aren't aware of the appropriate speed, drive too fast for conditions, or make that deliberate choice. If we could change just vehicle speeds, we would make just a tremendous difference. So our agency, most of you are familiar with a lot of the programs that we run. You drive, you text, you pay, addressing distracted driving, click it or ticket, for promoting seatbelt use. A lot of these funds go to local law enforcement, drive sober, get pulled over, speeding campaigns, pedestrian safety, child passenger, bicycle, work zone, motorcycle safety, teen driving initiatives addressing risks faced by young drivers, and many more. We also extensively use media, as the Department of Transportation has adopted some behavioral related media this year. So we use that media. We spend about $1.5 million a year in media to promote traffic safety. So, traffic crashes are inevitable, and but that doesn't mean we have to accept that the deaths and the injuries that go along with it. We can prevent these tragedies with the right approach, and recognizing that this is a priority. And I believe the commission is really a big step forward in showing that this is a priority. Certainly Governor Murphy has established that it's a priority. Attorney General Platkin has, and the legislature has, but now we have to find a way to make sure that everyone else also embraces that, so we can one day reach that target of 0 fatalities. I know we're running a little short on time, Deb, so I'm going to leave it there for any questions that you might have. That's okay?
Yeah, no, that's good. And we actually have till 1:30 here, so we're doing good. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna come back with some questions, I think, at the end. I'd like to introduce Essex County Commissioner Brendan Gill, who is on my town's Vision Zero Task Force. So I'm fortunate to be able to work with him both at the county and local level. And he's been a champion of safety and safe streets, both at the county and local level. And I thought it'd be great to sort of have his perspective to bring in how the local municipalities and the counties may be able to work with the commission going forward. So, Brendan?
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Debra. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you. Senator, always great to see you and to be with you as well. Sangeeta, I echo what the senator said. None of this probably would have happened without your advocacy, your continued advocacy. I'm proud to call you a friend, and to serve as one of your representatives at the county level. And of course, the Commissioner Michael, great to be with you as well. I actually am going to be very brief because I'm just so excited to see that we have almost close to 200 people who participated in this. on a noon, on a Wednesday, just, just your average lunchtime conversation. But it says to me like how far we've actually come in talking about these issues, and how important they are. So I come through this through the prism both as a local elected official, but also a person who has worked on the state and federal level in public service. And really what I am most excited about, and Debra, I'm going to be brief so we can get to some of the questions that I see people. I know we're going to answer those questions on the website, but there's some really great technical questions which about implementation. But what I'm so excited about what we're doing here is really a holistic approach to a pressing and urgent matter. Traffic fatalities, traffic violence, crashes, accidents, whatever you want to call it, in that sense, like is an urgent public health crisis right now. Whether you're in a suburban or urban community, at the local level, and I'm sure I can speak for many of my colleagues, both commissioners and other elected officials, are hearing from our constituents almost every day about the need to both reduce fatalities, and one is too many, but also just in general to make our roadways safer. That means lowering speed. That means redesigning intersections. That means enforcement. That means quite a few things. And I think with the beauty of both these local task forces that have been created, county task force, county safety action plans, and now a statewide task force, is that we're really going to start to think about these things holistically. So it's not so much Commissioner Gill. I was in an accident today on Elm Street and Orange Road. We need a traffic light there, right? And then kind of elected officials scramble and they do their work. And then maybe we put a traffic light, maybe we don't, maybe we make some changes. But it's not really an approach to like, how do we make sure that all of these roadways, which in our various communities, whether they're state, county, or local, are interconnected to a plan that is really not just trying to fix one roadway, one intersection, one situation that happened, but is really a holistic approach to how we do this together. So I'm so excited that there will be simple things like a place where we can find data really quickly to respond to folks out in the community about what an intersection looks like, what the data says about that intersection, how it informs the decisions that we're making as local elected officials, and also allows those of us who aren't engineers, who aren't the experts, to be able to work with advocates, but also to work with those engineers and experts and have a set of data that we can work off of all collectively and understand. So we have examples of that already in Essex County, for example, where in Montclair, my hometown, born and raised Montclarian, we have county roads where because of our Target Zero or Vision Zero task force, we've been able to lower the speed on these roadways. So you're going to make a huge difference in the safety of those roadways that run through very residential sections in front of some of our schools. And by the way, that process, complicated, not easy to get there. We got there, but having this task, having these local task force, these county safety plans, and now to have the state on top of it is just fantastic. So I'm super excited to be a part of this process on the local level. And we'll reiterate what the commissioner said, that also my hope is that we don't want to just put a plan to put a plan together or to put a plan on the shelf. We have enough of this. This is all about implementation at a certain point, and it's going to be evolving, which means that I think, Debra, the other thing that I would say to everyone out there is that we can implement some of these things immediately as this process is going on. It doesn't have to be a mutually exclusive process. That sometimes happens in government where we wait and say, well, we got to finish all the planning in order to get anything done. No, there are some simple things that we can do right now across our communities, tailored to our communities, that this this piece of legislation that Governor Murphy signed, we should thank the governor for that, that the senator worked tirelessly to get done, is going to allow us to do. So I'm just super excited to be here with everyone, to continue to advocate and work on these issues. And thank you for giving me a few minutes. All the best.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. That was terrific. Glad you could join us. We have over 40 questions in Q&A. So this is very exciting. People are very excited about it. We're not going to get to all of them, but I'll try to group a few of them together. And if anybody has other comments that they'd like to add, please feel free to do that. So there's a number of questions about data. So Director Rizol, maybe you could address a little bit about this. Part of the bill includes creating a public portal for data. There's questions about how, will that be accessible to the public? There's also some questions about, can we capture, is there a way to understand and capture serious injuries so that we have a broader picture of not just the fatalities, which we know we have been collecting, but also serious injuries. And along with that, there's a question that requests that we need better training for local police and guidance on the standards for completing the crash reports. And is there a way for us to do more of that, training, to have more consistency in our crash reporting? So I'll let you take parts of that, see what you have. You're muted, Mike, you're muted. Can you unmute?
Okay, I got it. I got it. Little mouse trouble. Yeah, certainly the bill requires that that data be made available, and I think it's a little bit overdue. Perhaps we do a great job of collecting data, and there are various resources out there that pull together data. Some of it available to the public now, some of it not available to the public. Some examples. Just this past fall, Highway Traffic Safety, in cooperation with the New Jersey State Police, created a new fatal accident database, dashboard rather. So if you go on their site, everyone kind of knows their site where there's the map and you can get the day-to-day statistics. There's a new dashboard over on the side that presents is a great resource for fatal crash data. We also have our CHOP database, New Jersey SHO, that presents some good information, brings in some health records and breaks things down on a little bit of a different lens, more from the person rather than the crash itself. But getting that injury crash data has been a little bit of a challenge, but the Department of Transportation has done a remarkable job over the last couple years in transitioning from a very antiquated paper collection form, and to think that in 2025 police reports are getting mailed to ultimately reach a database is something that they've worked tirelessly to overcome. We now have a statewide crash reporting system online. It's working in cooperation with some private records management vendors, but they're bringing that all together. They're catching up on a backlog of reports, and really by the end of 2025, I truly believe we're going to have fully in place an electronic crash reporting system that can provide both timely and accurate crash data, and hopefully that'll perhaps can have a public-facing dashboard that information can be gleaned by anyone who wants to search it. In regards to training police officers better, certainly it is a challenge. There's some complexities to that form, and often it's the newest officers that might be collecting some crash data. But one thing that electronic reporting system brings is a very robust system of business rules and checks that'll can as best it can prevent errors from being made. So if block whatever it says this, then this block can't say that. So it flags those errors before reports can even be submitted. So that's in place. Division of Highway Traffic Safety also funds a crash investigation or crash report class through Rutgers University, administered several times a year. So police officers can attend that class and learn how to some higher level errors that come up, learn how to better complete those crash reports. So we're trying to make strides in that direction, but I think we've certainly come a long way in the last few years, and I think the next year or two we're really going to be in a great place.
Thank you. That's great. There's a question. I'm gonna give this one to you, Brendan. It's successful implementation requires participation at the state, county, and municipal levels. How do you implement a planning process that ensures buy-in for implementation from elected officials at all levels of government? And Senator Diegnan, you had popped off for a second, so if you want to take this as well, I'd love to hear from both of you. This is really about how do we ensure the continued political support? How do we involve local and county elected officials and our local governments in this process? And is there a role for the commission that should be looking to help guide that process?
Hey, communication. Similar to what I said earlier in my comments, the worst thing involved in politics is to presume. Commissioner, I just presumed you knew there was a problem on XYZ street with whatever the problem is, and nobody ever. So really, basically, reach out to your elected officials and make sure that they are aware of the concerns you have. I mean, I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but if it wasn't for Sangeeta, this would not have happened, plain and simple. So don't just presume. And the thing that drives me most nuts is nowadays so many folks are disengaged. If I have one more friend say to me, I don't read the newspaper anymore, I don't watch the news anymore, I don't want to, that's not good. When there are issues, when there are concerns, you have to let your elected officials know. And from my experience, regardless of what side of the aisle on, everybody cares about this particular issue and they want to do the right thing. So to me, it's a simple answer, but on the other hand, it's a complicated answer too. You have to reach out to your elected officials and let them know what the issues are.
And I would just add, I completely agree with that, Senator. The other opportunity that's before us is that both with these local, local task force, county safety action plans, the statewide task force, is that it's going to give all of us that really deeply care about this issue and the real genesis of a network of elected officials across the state who may not interact with one another, and give them opportunities to interact with one another on this issue. So I think it's incumbent upon us, both as elected officials and advocates and people that care about this issue, to start to connect those dots. So if you're in the advocacy space and you see a local council person or a mayor or a commissioner who takes a little bit of an interest in this issue, let's bring that person on. Let's bring that person along. And then for many of us, right, we're not the experts, right? The experts are on this call. It's kind of like point and shoot. Where do we, for lack of better, where do we need to go? Where do we need to be? Where do we need to get to? That's an evolving and ongoing conversation. But implementation, I think, will rely heavily on all of us taking this network of people that we're building and then sending those people back into their local communities to make sure that this process continues to move forward.
Great. Thank you. There's a question. I'm going to see if anybody wants to take this one. I find you get what you measure is key to successful programs. Can we also measure and aim for 1, decrease in car trips statewide as new infrastructure allows people to replace car trips with alternative transportation, and likewise to decrease in congestion? Does anybody want to talk this about how do we how do we begin to measure that to encourage the decrease in use of car, the increase for alternative transportation, both in infrastructure and in funding for that? Anybody want to have some ideas about this one? Ooh, a
I'm
tough one.
sure Brendan could give it a more personal, but I can tell you in my district, Metuchen, Edison, Highland Park, New Brunswick isn't my district, but New Brunswick is bordering my district. All of those municipalities are booming for one reason: access to mass transportation. I mean, if you live in it, Denellen, which was really basically a city that had no prospects a few years ago, is now booming. Somerville, Morristown, all because of mass transportation. So I think this is one of those targets that takes care of itself. If you make mass transportation available, people take advantage of it. And I really believe, obviously, he's a friend, but I really think the governor gets it. If you listen to his budget address yesterday, what he has done in terms of infrastructure with New Jersey Transit, et cetera, he's made it a priority. And it's a struggle and it's a challenge, but it is a priority.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in on this one?
Reed, I totally agree, and I would also add that we need to it's a statewide issue, right? So I know that when I was first elected to the Essex County Board of then freeholders, now commissioners, over a decade ago, one of the first things I did was to bring a complete streets policy to the county of Essex, because it did not, one of the first pieces of county legislation that I introduced was to introduce a complete streets policy, because we did not have one. And at that time, I can tell you that, complete streets, or these issues, were viewed with suspicion, quite frankly, by some of the other, surrounding communities. Was this just about bicyclists or bikers, right? There wasn't this idea that, no, we're talking about an issue here. And even what we're talking about, not only is it a public safety issue, this is an economic development issue. Like, the safer that our roadways and walkways are, right, the greater opportunity we have to develop our communities economically in the way that we want. So we're promoting good public health. We're making sure that we're keeping people safe, especially our most vulnerable communities, our seniors and our children. And at the same time, we're also promoting the type of economic development that people want. They want walkability. They want access to mass transit. You see it all up and down this state. And if you're not in a concentrated area like that, if you're in a more rural area, they also want safety and public safety on these roadways, and to maybe be able to think about using them in different ways than they've been used in the past. So, the real opportunity here is to kind of merge these gaps. We have a state that has 535 municipalities. It has 21 counties, and sometimes can be highly segregated in many different ways. And the beauty, again, of what this work that we're doing is going to force communities that normally don't talk to one another to have to talk to one another. And I think we'll get better outcomes as a result.
Thank you. There's a number of questions about the safe passing law and the potential to do more campaigns on that statewide. Director Rizol, you want to talk about education campaigns for a moment?
Sure. As I mentioned, we spend a considerable amount of our budget going towards media, and those media campaigns are all based around those things that I talked about: driving sober, not driving distracted, wearing your seatbelt, all of our nationally supported campaigns. Most recently, last year, we started some media around the Move Over law. And we also produced some media regarding the Safe Passing law. So we did that last year to some extent. That involved some billboards, that involved some advertisements at the Prudential Center, which were, fantastic, all promoting the Safe Passing law. Also at Trenton Thunder Stadium. as you mentioned, there's legislation passing that would require us to do this, but, in seeing that, there's no need to really wait for that. We're trying to be as proactive as we can. We have upcoming in the summer, scheduled for June and September, an radio ad to be broadcast on FM channels throughout New Jersey, Greater New York, Greater Philadelphia markets, featuring Colonel Pat Callahan of the New Jersey State Police, informing listeners about the safe passing law. So we're excited about that. Those are even scheduled to be recorded within the next 2 weeks. So we're trying to take steps as best we can. But at the same time, I recognize that, there's probably a lot of people not aware of that law. So, certainly it is a priority to publicize that as best we can. We're also working to try to inform law enforcement about it. As a new law, it might not be at the front of every existing officer or new officer's mind. So, we have an upcoming meeting with Police Training Commission to ensure that in their recruit training and their in-service trainings, they include elements of pedestrian safety, pedestrian enforcement, pedestrian crash investigation, and certainly something like the safe passing law is going to be included in that also. So steps were taken, but not that they're the be-all end-all, but we are working to promote that as best we can. Someone has, other great solutions, perhaps whether it's a highway traffic safety initiative or a commission initiative that comes out of this commission, certainly love to hear, any new ideas.
Okay. Sangeeta, can you share with us some vision for where you think this commission will take us in sort of a long-term vision of what we hope to accomplish in 5 or even 10 years, and how this commission, this law can actually make a real impact?
Debbie, you want the long or the short answer?
Well, we have 4 minutes till we're done, so you
4 minutes is not going to cover it, but I'll take a stab at it. But anyway, I think at the beginning we said we want to see real measurable progress here, right? Within the next 5 to 10 years, we want to see a plan that is actionable, continuous, and there's a robust implementation. The commission calls for a coordination effort between every level of government and active public participation. We want to see that. We want to also see a benchmarks for progress with clear goals and timelines. And we need a standing implementation oversight committee to ensure that these benchmarks are being met and the plan stays on track and tangible results, right? So we want to see significant reduction in traffic fatalities for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers, for all our road users, especially in high-risk areas and historically underserved communities, and a clear downward trend in serious injuries through data-driven safety interventions. We need to see more redesigning of dangerous intersections and corridors to prioritize safety over speed, expansion of implementations of traffic calming measures, and policy changes that reduce speed limits in high-risk areas, and potentially, my favorite, automated enforcement in school zone areas. And I know we've talked about that, but those are the things we want to see. And then we want to see better enforcement for pedestrian laws. And I think we need a commitment from every municipality and county to adopt and enforce the complete streets and green policy, the new and updated policy that ensures that roads are designed for all users, And then we want to see increased investment in safe and accessible public transit, transits and pedestrian infrastructure and biking networks, right? So these are some of the things we want to see. We want to see the publicly accessible data portal that we are talking about. So by 2030, we want to be on a clear path towards zero traffic deaths by 2040. So the next 5 to 10 years will be critical in laying the groundwork for this goal. So every step we take now is a step towards creating a future where no family has to endure a devastating loss of a loved one to traffic violence. That was my short answer.
That was a perfect short version. I think, I think the points that what we're looking for is actionable items from this commission, that we are looking for transparency and opportunity to collaborate with input, that we're looking for accountability and measures and benchmarks for what we can accomplish. And I think we're out to a great start. In terms of participation, we have 54 questions just from this webinar alone. And we'll try to get some answers to everybody, as I said, on our website. I truly, really appreciate all of yours participation today. I know it's the beginning of this process and we don't have answers to everything, but I think this was a fantastic start to that process. We will be following through with a lot of these issues that have been raised, whether it's enforcement, different legislation issues, and ways to collaborate both from the state, county, and municipal over the local safety action plans and Vision Zero at our 2025 summit, March 29th. And again, one of the keynotes will be Commissioner O'Connor as well. I hope you will all come. Thank you so much. Thank you all for all your work to get this bill passed. All of the advocates who participated, Senator Diegnan for your sponsorship, and Assemblyman Karabinchik, Sangeeta for your leadership on this as well. We look forward to working with all of you, and we are at the end of this webinar. Thank you everyone so much for participating.
Thank you. Okay, keep up the good work.
See you in March, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.